This is the Collecting Real Estate Podcast. I'm your host, Stephen Purse, here with your co-host, Bill Hamill.
I'm so much more comfortable collecting real estate than I am collecting other stuff.
We just finished up an interview with Darren Light. He's a coach in the Jake and Gino community, a successful multifamily investor. I thought it went great. What do you think, Bill?
Yeah, Darren's a fantastic guy, and he really does have that superpower of relationship building. He's able to connect with people on a business and personal level very routinely.
Yeah, building relationships seemed to be the theme throughout the episode. I always get so motivated after we record one of these. These people are so inspiring and they have so much knowledge. I hope that, I know it will translate to everyone listening.
Well, relationship building and having that come naturally translates into great networking, and as we know in the multifamily space, that's what it's all about. It's building that network because it's going to mirror your net
You're
worth.
right, that's what it's all about. Welcome to the Collecting Real Estate Podcast. I'm very excited for our guest, Darren Light, today. He is another real estate professional from the Jake and Gino community. We're really lucky to have him here. Darren, thank you for being here. Can you dive right in with a little bit on your real estate background?
Hey, Stephen. Hey, Bill. Yeah, good morning. Really appreciate the opportunity to be on and share what I've learned today, some of my experiences. I started in real estate 2016, went to a guru seminar at a hotel locally here in Knoxville, Tennessee, where I live. Learned about flipping, learned about single-family rentals, and promptly dove in that fashion. Still had a W-2 at the time as a mechanical engineer. Then fast forward about a year later, 2017, I went to the very first Jake and Gino Multifamily Mastery Live 1, which was here, about 150 people. Their education platform was just sort of getting off the ground at that time, but an hour into the conference, I knew that multifamily was what I needed to do to scale more quickly, create wealth more quickly, and the scalability as far as the amount of effort that went into that versus single family homes. I had up to 8 at that time, all managing them myself, made much more sense. So I joined, and about a year later, myself and some partners from within the community, we did our very first purchase of a 62 unit, and things just took off from there. I met Greg Scully at that conference. So that's 4 years ago. And then shortly thereafter met his wife, and we just kind of organically became partners. And, we, by the end of this year, will close probably our 8th opportunity. I think we've got 4 in the hopper right now that we're trying to close, and 2 of them are actually a different asset class. So that's kind of the short version of how I got started.
Now, I know that you've been a very busy guy since I've known you over the last year, and you have that partnership with Greg and Kim. Knowing a little bit about them coming from another state, tell us a little bit about how that partnership did come together.
Well, we met at that conference, Greg and I remember we had lunch together the one day we were there. I think it was a 2-day event, but and we really just I don't know what and we have totally different interests, even interests as far as music and just other things, what we put our time into, things like that. We just sort of hit it off, and we stayed in touch. We stayed in touch intentionally about every week, every other week. We had a phone call because once we both joined the platform, we both had the same goal: find our first deal. And as he was analyzing markets, I think he realized that East Tennessee was a good market. We connected with some people local to the area and dug our heels in, and he knew Alaska was not going to be a good place for it. They lived about an hour outside of Anchorage. And the more we talked, the more we got to know each other, realized that, we both had similar business goals. Greg and Kim also come from an entrepreneurial background. They had a business or two along the way. He also had a W-2. at the time, and so did she. So it took a while, really, to be honest with you. Once we sort of identified what each other's skills were, I think organically we knew we should really leverage those skills. He's a great analysis guy. He's great at crossing the T's and dotting the I's as far as what we're doing from a legal standpoint, working with attorneys and things like that. I'm more of the relationship guy, out raising money, trying to find off-market deals. And that's kind of how we leverage each other now. And then and we had started before Kim left her W-2, but once she did, she came in and does so much behind the scenes, with our own podcast and with management now, self-management, and just sort of keeping us on track. There's so many little things that she does that I probably don't even know all the little things that she does. So it really just kind of organically grew. And one thing that I'm huge on, and I've had the conversation a lot recently, is if you're going to be a partner of mine, I don't just want your money. I just don't want it to be a business transaction. I want it to be on a very personal level. That's the way I'm wired. I want to know that we can hang out and have a conversation about something other than real estate, that we can joke around, that we can go on a weekend away together, just doing life together. That's huge to me. And if you don't want to do that, I probably don't want to partner with you, because I don't just want it to be, formal and business. And I want to know about your family. I want to know about your kids, and I want you to know about mine. That's hard for some people. I'm more of an extrovert than Greg is, but Greg has definitely changed as we've gone along this process, because it helps him and helps our business the more he's in front of people. So it's kind of organically just happened. I hope that answers your question good enough.
I've said it before, but it's so powerful to have a partnership that works well organically. You mentioned having different interests. I think that's positive in a partnership. Even one person being introverted, one person being extroverted, being able to complement each other like that. I want to go back to the beginning of the story. You said in 2016 you went to a guru. He was a presenter. What made you want to go do that? What made you interested in real estate, and what was that experience like?
It's funny you asked that question. I had no interest, and I had a friend of mine that drugged me to this conference. And at that point in my life, I had probably tried a couple different MLM type businesses. I also, probably the most successful business I had with another partner was we owned a concrete coating company for about 5 years. But with the W-2, we were never able to get over the hump to where we could leave our W-2s and make that our full-time gig. So I guess you could say I had somewhat of an entrepreneurial spirit inside me. But once I got to the conference and started listening to the possibilities, you get in some of those things, you can feel the energy, you can feel the vibe, it makes you want to do certain things or maybe make certain decisions or whatnot. I thought at that point in my life, my kids were older. I did not want to work for someone for the rest of my life. And for whatever reason, that sort of put me over the edge, just hearing some of what people were saying, knowing that, hey, there's a lot that I don't yet know, but this sounds simple enough to where I know I can go out there and make this happen. And so, credit that friend for getting me there, but we started out as partners, but that didn't last very long. For good reasons that I recognized on my end, and just stuck with it.
Yeah, who knows, that 2016 friend who dragged you over there may be a great friend, but doesn't have that complementary characteristic like you and Greg have that creates that great partnership. So the 2016 guru got your feet wet in real estate, and did you get value out of that? Are you still utilizing what you learned there now, knowing that you went to Jake and Gino a year later, and that really...
I am still using some of what I learned there. We do still flip houses and are quite successful at it. And I would say that just learning about wholesalers and the relationship that I have now from wholesalers coming out of there, and a couple other things that I still use today. definitely continue to help. So, it's kind of two different business models: still flip houses and buy apartments. Not everyone does that, but I think my ability to maintain current relationships and create new ones is what's allowed me to be successful in the flipping business. Because we have a wholesaler that we have a great relationship with we've bought 4 flips from him locally, and he actually brought us our next 31 unit multifamily property that we're closing in about a month, and that we'll self manage. And we because he wanted to level up his business, he saw the value in multifamily. And we're not doing a wholesale transaction, but we're bringing him in as an equity partner and giving him some of the acquisition fee so that he can go out and find the next one. And we'll continue to buy homes with him. So definitely I was able to maintain some of those skills and that knowledge from, I say Guru Seminar because I paid way too much money for it. And, that's what they do. They travel around the country. They're making money off their education program. And it's not generally a long-standing relationship with those type of people. But, hey, got me started, and, don't regret it at all.
So just going chronologically here, after you saw this guru, you got the interest, you started to learn about real estate. You mentioned investing in single family homes. I think you said you got up
Correct.
to 8 of them. Can you tell us more about that? How did you find those homes? How did you manage them? What was that process like?
2016, you could still get a house on the market listed for a fair price. Most 2-bedroom, 1-bath homes around 900 to 1,000 square feet. I had 3 or 4 of them in the South Knoxville area, an older area. And actually, my first rental was a rehab and rental. It ended up being a rehab and rental. It needed about $27,000 worth of work. That's actually that's the numbers. I don't remember the rest of it, but it's 27,000 something. Funny how those first transactions stick out to you. But the house had been empty for a while, and I bought 2 of them at the same time. One was listed, one was not. And the agent told me, hey, they've got another house that's not listed. You could probably get them together as a great pack. I paid $96,500 for 2 houses. You can't do that today, right? One already had tenants in it and was getting about $650 a month in rent. The other one needed quite a bit of work, as I just alluded to. Then everything I bought single family for the next couple years was all on market, all listed. And so, I was making anywhere from $300 to $400 a door. Most people say in the rental space, if you're making at least $300 a door, you're doing fairly well. Obviously, that depends on your debt situation. But there was one that I was probably only making about $100 a door. And looking back, you say to yourself, man, why did I buy that? Well, it was a condo on the Tennessee River, and it was had been totally updated, and it was downtown, and kind of a lesson learned type deal, right? I managed those on my own. I collected rent through Venmo. Someone suggested that. I thought that was the greatest thing ever. I would have my phone notifications sound on, and I could hear that cha-ching sound when rent would come in, and I'd be sitting with a friend, and I would make sure they heard it. And what was that? It's me collecting rent, man. And I was rolling, right, and not knowing it was going to take me another 10 years to get a substantial amount of houses in single family space. So yeah, I bought a triplex at one time. That was actually part of the 8 units total. So not necessarily 8 single families, but 8 units total. And that was a really good buy. And I just remember it was an older home built in the 20s. And that's the one I probably had the most issues with. And I'd owned it a year and a half, and I'd get those calls in the middle of the night about a toilet or whatever, and that's when it hit me like, oh, there's got to be a better way. I was still doing it because I had to, and I couldn't pay someone at the time because the money didn't make sense to make it happen or manage it for me. And so, not until I made the decision to join Jake and Gino, literally an hour after sitting there, I was like, I'm getting into this, and I'm selling all my single families, and that's what I did. I went out promptly, put 1 or 2 up for sale. It took me I held on to 1 or 2 of them until a couple years down the road. One was in my neighborhood. It was a different level of house. It was nicer, and it was in my backyard. I didn't have to do anything with it. And at that point, I was paying someone to run it. And I didn't sell it till probably a year ago. But yeah, you learn fast, not just the mechanical stuff of what you're doing, but business, what scalability is about, what it can afford you as far as time management and the ability to get there faster, whether that's a number of doors or whether that's a monthly cash flow number or both. Scalability, people just can't get that. That's hard for some people to understand. Your insurance is cheaper, your maintenance overall is cheaper. Putting on a roof on a 10 unit can be much cheaper than shingling 10 single family houses, things of that nature. So I'm glad I had the experience. I would tell anyone that's getting into real estate, skip the single family phase. If your goal is to create wealth, if you want to create a job and have fun and just be able to do stuff with your hands, absolutely, yeah, go do the single family thing. But if it's to create wealth, skip it altogether.
And we all have a different journey. We all have a different learning curve. So many of us started with those small properties, and it takes that to really live it and understand after, who knows, a year or 20 years that I can do so much more with scaling. And it takes some, fortunately for you, you went to that Jake and Gino event shortly after you began your real estate career and saw the potential of scaling. And you said that you're 1 hour in on that event and you were sold because you had just dealt with that small property management and the inability to scale the way that you want to. And that mastermind that you went to gave you that potential. Can you explain how much clarity you had at that point to get to you where you are now as far as what your criteria is and exactly what you're looking to purchase at this point?
The clarity I gained at the first conference, was very easy because everything that anyone spoke about from the stage made perfect sense for me, but I didn't have that knowledge at all until it was imparted into me. And I'll be honest with you that probably during our first or two purchases, we probably didn't have that criteria set as to this is what we're looking for on paper. But as time has gone on, one thing we did that sometimes you tell the story, people say to you, "Wow, do you regret that?" No, our very first property was an incredibly heavy lift with a ton of lessons learned. We had planned to renovate a building at a time, 3 buildings. When we started to give notice to the first few tenants, we had full tenant flights. We had a 0 cash flowing property. We had to rehab every unit. We were undercapitalized. We had to have capital calls. We had to fire 2 or 3 contractors. We sold that asset this past May for a return, which is an accomplishment in itself. And, we had like a handful of units left to rehab to a very good buyer. Point is that we learned a lot. We cut our teeth on that. Today, our criteria generally is, although we've been buying smaller unit deals, let's say anywhere from 30 to 80 in the past, that's what we've bought. Our criteria now is we're trying to hit that first triple digit 100 unit and up, generally on actual numbers, 8% cash on cash right out of the gate, which is obviously as time has gone on and cap rates have compressed, that's been harder to find. However, one thing we learned quickly on, and this is something I learned early on, I'll credit Bill Ham for this, a real estate multifamily coach and mentor that we all know and respect. One thing we learned early on is don't get caught up on cap rate and don't get caught up on price per door. Because if you can take a 5.5, 6, 6.5 cap rate property that's truly being ran at that, and you can find some inefficiencies in their numbers on paper, you can get that thing a point and a half higher within the first 6 months to a year and be at 8% cash on cash. So even if you're paying 150 to 200 a door, so we never really had that criteria, and I don't know when that aha moment occurred, whether it was Greg and I together or myself, but Yeah, you are going to look at cap rate. You're going to look at price per door, but not till you dig into the numbers are you really going to know whether there's an opportunity there or not. So we're generally looking at 8% cash on cash right out of the gate. We're trying to refinance in 2 to 3 years to give all capital back to investors and or most of it. And then we're long-term hold buyers. We want to hold long-term. And we model things from 5 to 7 years, but we want to hold past that because we're all about cash flow. We want that cash flow number. Now, with the way the market has gone, we've sold the one property I just mentioned. We also went full cycle on our first syndication in 20 months in Chattanooga in 2019, or 2020 early, we sold it. We had a 70% return. Somebody came along and made us a crazy offer because our projected return was that after 5 or 7 years. We're not going to do that every time. Just because the market's crazy now doesn't mean we have to sell. So because we do want to get to that cash flow number, and it's different for different people. So we like finding something where the heavy lift is not a factor. We've not done another property like that since then. Probably be a while before we would do that because we went a couple years with no return on capital, and so we don't want to go through that again. That's the thing I mentioned about you regret it. No, because we wouldn't be where we are today if we hadn't learned from that and being able to apply it to our business today. I hope that gave you something on criteria, Bill. I'm not sure.
Oh yeah, I love it, man. That's the golden criteria right there. Anyone who's like interested in just getting started in syndication should rewind this 5 minutes and listen to that again because those are the golden.
And depending on,
right,
and we'll underwrite the same. I know this is what a lot of people do, but I'm telling you, it's what we do as well. We'll take the one opportunity and we'll underwrite it 4 or 5 different ways. It might be syndication, it might be as a JV. We can do both. We've done both. And it might be a 70-30 split, it might be an 80-20 split, might be a 7 pref, might be an 8 pref. What numbers in return looks the best on paper after you consider all these scenarios? That's what we try to do. So there's, as far as the numbers and returns we want to get, we have those are pretty much set in stone. But as far as the way you get there, and that can be different. And what debt can you get? Because a lot of times you can. I'm not necessarily, I'm going to say it anyway, lose on price, but win on debt. And it can end up being a great deal for everybody. You can give the seller the price he wants, knowing you can get great terms and still make the numbers work.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm still conflicted on your statement to skip the single family home stage. I think it's a good learning part. I'm always the one preaching to scale faster. So it's interesting to hear that. But to keep going on what you were just talking about, in the syndication arena, it is so important to be able to look at the numbers from 4 different angles. When you have that responsibility to those investors, you have to know the numbers that well. Now that you do have your criteria set up, you have a functioning business, you have a great relationship with your partner. What is the structure like? Who's finding the deals? What are your roles in this relationship?
It's really a combination as far as finding the deals. Greg and I have both created some awesome relationships. And so really what it boils down to is sort of what I mentioned earlier. He's the analysis underwriting guru. I know enough just to be dangerous. He credits me with a lot more knowledge than I think I have, which is funny in itself. But at some point, you have to accept what you're great at, and you have to leverage it and just run with it. And don't worry about what you're not great at. I'm not great at underwriting. That's why Greg is my partner. He's not great at raising money. Can he raise money? Sure. That's what I'm great at. I'll go do that. Or create another relationship to do whatever, or talk to this person to make the transaction more smooth, whatever that looks like. Greg is more business oriented. I'm more of the warm and fuzzy. Hey man, let's have a beer. Let's talk about this opportunity, whatever. Don't get me wrong. Greg has become more out of his shell, if you will. But finding the deals kind of a combo on both our ends due to the relationships we've established over the last 4 years. Here's the great thing when you get to where we are, and Bill, you know a lot about this. At some point, when you have proven yourself as an operator and you have proven yourself as a deal closer, people come to you and say, hey, I've got a 34 unit in Jefferson City, Tennessee. I've been working on this seller for the last 2 years because I have a 13 unit around the corner and I've gotten to know her really well. Remember, we met at a meetup about 2 years ago. Oh, we've had a phone call every now and then. Are you guys interested in closing this with me or helping me close it? Take it down. Because going from a 13 to a 34, it's a big deal, bigger deal for that person. And this just recently happened to us. The last 3 deals that we will close before the end of the year, one we've already done in July, south of Nashville, the 34 unit, and now the 31 unit. Those next 2 be 3 total. All those deals were brought to us. We didn't have to find them. They were brought to us because, number one, they knew we were a great operator. And number 2, they knew we could close the deal. And we must be halfway decent guys. And there's good stuff being said about us out there in the multifamily space community. So you think about that aspect. We think of how much work sometimes comes into finding an opportunity. This one partner has been talking to this owner for 2 years, and she was finally ready to sell. And then he just called us up and said, are you interested? And we said, let us see the numbers, let us see the property. And as soon as we saw both, we were like, yep, let's do it. And that's, I say, you ask about who finds the deals. Well, at some point, your reputation helps you find some deals, and a lot of the work's been done. So then when it gets to us, they're close to signing the contract, and we get involved with our legal, we get involved with our title company, and then we meet weekly until we close it. And so that's a good feeling to know that you have some experience and knowledge and you can add value to another potential partner. People ask me, and I don't know, I'm going to give you something, Stephen, that I think is very important. Outside of what your actual question was, what I've been able to do organically, and I don't even know that it's been intentful. It's just happened. I've sort of strategically placed myself in a relationship with about 4 or 5 different sets of people around the country, Jake and Gino or not. And if they find a deal, they come to me. If I find a deal, I can come to them for capital or whatever it is. And I think that's just served me well. But to date, Greg and Darren are Greg and Darren. And will we always be? I mean, probably not. But if we want to go do a deal with someone else, or he wants to go do a deal with someone else, we have that luxury. We're not partners on paper. We did that intentionally for that reason. But it's worked well to date, and we do life together. So I kind of went off the rails there, man, with your question. But he's the analysis guy. I'm the relationship guy. I think that's what it kind of boils down to.
Well, what I get out of everything you've been saying, it's all about the journey. So you started in 2016 with a single family flip guru, and 5 years later, you have learned so much through successes and failures along the way to create clarity for you to say just that. And I can appreciate that because I've been doing this for some time, and I have a passion at this point for assisting or helping people just getting started based on my successes and failures, and for people to learn that way so they can avoid pitfalls and compress their learning curve so they can grow faster. So getting back to one of your early investments, I couldn't help to hear you say that tenant flight. And we're all doing similar deals where we're buying at market value, but we see that growth potential. But there's an art to that growth potential, which equals, we're adding some value, but in some cases, we're really increasing rents. So how do we avoid that tenant flight? And what did you guys do wrong for you guys to have to experience that?
Let's take that project, my first project, and do a totally different comparison or analysis versus what's going on today, because we've done both, right? So that project was an incredibly distressed property. It was owned by a lady that had inherited it from I guess her husband that had just passed. We're talking two, 1.5, 2-bedroom, 1.5 townhomes that were built in the early 70s. They had some failing concrete decks. The city had issued them a code, or was threatening to issue them a code violation. We paid $19.5 a door. So think about that. We had probably about $750,000 in our rehab budget, which included the outdoor brand new decks on the outside. We went back with wooden decks with LVL beams, and we redid the inside of every single. So here's what happened. The plan was to rehab one building at a time, approximately 20 units per building. And people were paying $200, $300, maybe $400 rent for that type of unit. And this is in Northeast Tennessee. And some people weren't paying rent at all. Some people were paying some rent. Everything was recorded on a hand ledger. Total mom and pop. Maintenance guy lived there. He was 50-some years old, been living in the apartment since he was 16. Knew this gentleman very well that owned this. So you kind of get an idea of what's going on here. We gave notice to the first building, and we were not, and most leases were non-existent. So we gave notice to the first building. Pretty much everyone vacated with no issues. And because everyone else was talked in the community, the property, whatnot, they could see what was going to happen. And, we were hoping to have those two buildings remain with the tenants to keep our debt service up. And as soon as we issued notice to the first, we were 80% occupied, over 80% upon takeover. And then as soon as we issued notice to the first building to vacate, we're non-renew status, if you will, people just slowly started leaving one by one. And a lot of them owed money. A lot of them owed thousands of dollars in money. The lady was just, number one, too nice to people, didn't know how to run his business. And number two, at that point, she probably didn't care because she just wanted her money anyway. And you couldn't stop the bleeding, if you will, keep people from leaving. And so it's that point. So that's a total different model as to what today is going on. So today, we say add value. We're all going to increase the rents. Basically, what we do now is, and we've learned this over time, over the last few properties that we've owned, we've learned, like, in some cases we've not been aggressive enough. And so when you take over a property now and you're $150 to $250 under market rent, the unit is in good shape, but it's dated. Generally, what we've learned is, on any of our properties moving forward, you want to take the outside in approach. You want to do something to the outside of the property so that they visually see that you're adding value to them before you even knock on their door. You're repaving the parking lot and striping it. You're redoing the landscaping. You're putting up a new sign. You're power washing the siding. You're adding some new downspouts that have been kicked or bent or whatever. Name it. Something that adds value to the outside. They see it. They can't deny it. And then when you knock on their door, you're like, hey, Mrs. Smith, we see that your lease is coming up in another month. Just want to let you know that, your new rent will go up $100 or maybe $150. Even if your pro forma, let's say your pro forma for year 2 or 3 is maybe $250 to $300 raise, well, you're probably going to try to get half of that in your first raise. And one thing you're going to ask them is, are there any issues inside your apartment that need to be fixed? We want to fix those for you. We hear stories all the time of tenants not notifying management or the owners of issues they have had because they're scared. We don't know why that occurs unless they've not had good service in the past. And sometimes they're just scared because they think that, you might get angry or you'll kick them out or whatever, which is a crazy thought, but people do have that thought. And then what we also try to do is, fix anything that needs to be fixed in the apartment. You've already done some on the outside. And then, if you can see that the $100, $150 raise is an issue for them, then you make them another offer. You say, hey, we can also upgrade all your lighting to LEDs. We can paint your apartment. We can clean your carpet. Maybe we need to replace your carpet, but not a full turn. Just something that makes them feel like, hey, I am being paid attention to. And I think also what we've learned in this business is that a lot of people, majority of tenants, know when they're getting a very good value for their rent. So when you come and knock on their door and you're going up $100, $150 right out of the gate to renew their lease, and giving them something in return, they know they're getting a good value. I think depending on your market, what you're able to push, you definitely don't want to go in there and $300-400 right out of the gate. Now, what we've also learned is in our market in East Tennessee, where people are moving to in droves from other states, because there's no state income tax, it's much cheaper to live. Property taxes are cheaper. You have 4 seasons here. You're 8 hours from the beach. A lot of companies are moving here. You can actually, once that tenant does not renew at all, you can most times remarket that unit and barely do anything to it and just go ahead and increase it $300-400, and people are swooping it up like crazy. This is happening to us in Columbia, Tennessee, south of Nashville. But you also want to do a full-fledged turn on a unit to see what's the premium amount you can get. You want to change the flooring. You want to change the cabinets. You want to do everything in at least one unit to know how far you can push it. So, if you raise rent $400 and you spent $4 or $5 grand on the unit, just add up that value over time. It's a no-brainer that you should still invest that money into that unit. So a couple different ways that you can look at it.
I really like that working from the outside in tip, because the tenants are just people, and you build that trust with them when they see you working on the outside of their apartment, their house, where they live. It's their home, and you're taking care of it. So by the time you do knock on the door, there's trust there. You already have rapport built with them. And I love the tenant flight story because it's such a realistic situation where everything looks great on paper. We have this planned out. We're going to renovate these buildings one at a time, and it all works out. And then you get punched in the face. And what's the famous saying that you're preparing to get punched in the face?
Mike Tyson.
Once that happens,
you bring up a great point, Stephen. I want to comment on that really quick. That project, man, we could have thrown in the towel a million times, a gazillion times. But I will tell you, I look back on that now, and I'm proud of what we had several partners in that, but Greg and I were boots on the ground. I'm proud specifically of what Greg and I were able to accomplish and how we turned that around. Not exactly where we were hoping to get it to, but point was, a lot of what could go wrong in a multifamily deal did go wrong in that deal. But here we are. And I like to tell people we cut our teeth on that opportunity. So, it tests your fortitude and your mental resolve. And I'm very big on mindset. That's another thing I think that I bring to the table. And to your point, you said, what I said about I would not tell anybody to go into the single family route now. Just something came to my mind. When we had MM4 this past weekend in Orlando with Jake and Gino, with 800 people, their 4th live event, we had 6 people at least that I know of that came from our local market that know us and came just because they know us. And we had a couple from our meetup that had probably only been to our meetup 2 or 3 months, and they joined. They joined Jake and Gino because they saw what we had done. They've heard us tell our stories. And to your point, those are the people that I can sit down with and go, all right, here's how we're going to do this. And here's a proof of what we've done. Don't do this, don't do that, but yes, do this. So I think I get great joy, and Bill sort of touched on this. Even though I'm not where I want to be yet financially and I'm still going, I get great joy on sharing with people, especially younger people, the 20-somethings that are out there, like they realize there's big potential in this, to help them avoid some stumbles. I get great satisfaction out of just sharing my journey and trying to help them along the way.
My compromise sentiment is just owner-occupied duplex or 2 to 4 unit. You learn how to manage, you learn how to deal with it, and then focus on
and that's okay.
Stuff.
There's nothing wrong with that at all. Because I know people today that are in multifamily that have had their first single family for 20 years. They still own it because it's free and clear, right? And that's okay. You do learn, and there is something to be said for that. There's something to be said for getting dirty, knowing the ins and outs of management, and you do learn the good, bad, and the ugly. So I'm not poo-pooing on it all the way. I am poo-pooing on going out and trying to buy 20 single families when you go out here and buy a 120 unit with one partner, potentially.
That we
Everyone's
Everyone's
different.
different. Everyone's different. Everyone's going to have a different journey. Everyone has a different set of resources. We're all at a different age based on our journeys. And hearing you and knowing you, you're a relationship expert. So it's a testament to when a couple people have gone to your meetup over the last 2 or 3 months, went to the mastermind, and joined Jake and Gino because you built up a relationship in a short period of time where they know and trust you to say, hey, I'm going to make that investment in Jake and Gino because we trust what Darren has done in his journey. And going back to, the tenants, you guys were discussing it's relationships once again. So it's the relationship and communicating, which is so important to relationship building with your tenants, stating that, hey, we just took over. On the front side, we're going to explain, we're going to be improving this, this, and this. And is there anything else we can do for you inside your units that has been neglected by the former owner? And boy, did you learn that's the way to do it to retain your tenants and get the result that you want.
Absolutely.
With that
You nailed it. It all goes back to relationships.
So that is your journey up till now where, boy, have you learned from, certain deals you've done. You realized, okay, single families, that's not going to get me where I want to be. I have to scale. But when you're scaling, you learned how to do it the correct way. And has that become a template for you in all your partnerships where you're approaching every multifamily deal you're doing based on, okay, we're doing it the same way every time because it worked?
Absolutely. So it took us a while to get there, but we have a template. Not just a template in our mind and a process, but also the physical templates. Like we have a due diligence checklist, and excuse me. Once we get a property under contract, pardon me, we meet weekly with the GP, the management team that we're going to be doing this with, generally the general partnership, whether it's a syndication or not, the main players that brought it together and we all have certain responsibilities, and we use the same lawyer, we use the same title company. We generally, for the most part, use the same contract, but it may have some nuances depending on the property and the seller and things of that nature. So, and that's part of our strength, and I think the attractiveness of Greg and I and Kim as a team, why people are gravitating towards us going, we like what they're doing. We like what other people say about them, which is a huge thing. We could probably do this by ourselves, but in order to do it right and know that we can get done, bring it to close, we would like to bring them on as partners. That's what's been happening. So we do have a certain regimented way, and it even took, Greg and Kim and I a while to sort of learn, like, all right, you're doing this, and you're doing this. Go out there and make that happen. So, even little things like I'm generally calling the inspector. That specific, then okay, that's generally what Darren does to get out there and get the units done. We have the same inspector that we use for every. And a lot of we have tapped into Jake and Gino's resources or people that they've done business with, and then they've just become our own. That's one thing I was just thinking about when you're talking about the community. That community is that a lot of people join that community that are already. It's sort of like what you've done, Bill. Although you knew you needed to push yourself out of your comfort zone, get out of self-management, and even though you're going to do this other deal as that. You've tapped into a huge network that has a ton of value and resources that can help you do your business easier. And a lot of people join the network just for that part. So we've definitely been able to do that. And just speaking about relationships in general, now we have 2 RV parks under contract, and we weren't even looking in that space. And due to a relationship, I got some information one day about one of them. And before you know it, we're getting another one in our inbox after we'd already learned how to underwrite. We're like, okay, why not? And now we're partnering with someone that has more experience in the field than we do from a past relationship. And all's good in the world. And the returns on those are like mobile home parks were about 5 years ago. So all about relationships as far as that part goes. We're excited about that. That's probably our newest thing that we have going on. And then one of our 2022 goals is we want to go take down 100 unit plus property, preferably in our market, if it can be, and we're going to be very intentional about that effort.
Awesome. And the beginning is always, not always, but the beginning commonly is the most difficult for anybody in any venture that they're trying to accomplish. And once you get that template down, that proof of concept down, we start to grow and things just become easier because
we know what we're doing. And sometimes we question, I talk about this often. Sometimes as men, I think we question our ability and what we're doing. But when you're having those moments, you're like, yeah, I got this. Now, one thing you cannot do is think, oh, I've done this 100 times. I know what I'm doing. We've learned on every single deal opportunity that they're all different. And we always want input from other partners, whatever that part you may play in a partnership, whether you've never done one before, whether you've done 10 of them. We always are looking for advice and challenge people to challenge our thinking and our way of doing things. If we can learn from someone else a way to do things better, more efficiently, we're all about it. And we're all about criticism, constructive criticism. So we'll never claim to be the experts, but yet, to your point, yes, we do know what we're doing. We have some experience. We have some value, and just continue to learn along the way.
Yeah, and then once we created that confidence, we're ready to rock and roll. So, we just have to take it one deal at a time. And even though we've had success, we've been through the journey, we can't take the next
Correct.
deal for granted. You have to still go through those steps to make sure that next deal is going to go as planned. So, Darren, we want to wrap the show up. They say you have to have 3 of something to have a collection. So we have a collection of questions for you to wrap this up.
Okay.
This is the Collecting Real Estate Show. So what is your 1 to 2 year real estate goal?
My 1 to 2 year real estate goal is I want to have my flipping business on autopilot, meaning someone is managing it for me. I have them on salary, incentivizing them to get things done as fast as possible. They're the acquisitions manager and they're the project manager. That's one. The second thing would be take down that 100 unit, probably a 2 triple-digit unit complexes somewhere, and be able to we're about to do our first refi out of a property we bought almost 2 years ago. And I'm looking forward to that continuing to occur. And as Bill Ham refers to that conveyor belt, you buy one, it's on the conveyor belt, you refi, it may drop off or not, or it may keep riding. So just looking forward to continuing really upping my monthly cash flow number. And you know what? It's funny. People ask me, do you have a number? No, but I'll know when I get there, right? And some people can't live with that. Or I don't have a unit count either. I've actually hit my unit count for this year. Goal, I think, was 200 additional units, but that includes the RV park. So more automated systems, to be honest with you. Just some more automated stuff. So no matter what we're doing, hire a couple VAs that's doing stuff behind the scenes. So really hope that happens in the next year or less, and then just grow that in the year beyond.
Awesome. I've been watching you closely, and I know, you said it's not necessarily the unit count, but I'm watching that road to
Yeah, thank
500
you.
for you. So you're probably approaching that before you even expected. Number two, what is one personal goal for the next year?
Personal goal for the next year. Most people know that I'm big into fitness. I am a grandfather of a 15-month-old granddaughter. The reason I say that is I injured myself about 3 weeks ago, and mentally it has killed me. So I just got back into CrossFit about a month before that happened, and my goal is to get back into that. Probably another 2 to 3 weeks I have to go to get this behind this injury, and just be in the best shape of my life, to be honest. And people say that, and I've probably already hit that at some point in my life, but really just to physically, and because I think the mental and the physical both affect each other, and just realize that just to be blessed to have that granddaughter now in my life, and I just want to be in shape for her and be able to do what I want when I want. So that's kind of a roundabout answer. Sorry.
No, that's awesome. It's a
Absolutely.
lifestyle. So, can we do what we did when we were 25? No, that's very difficult, but just maintaining that lifestyle. And when you get hurt, now you
Yep.
have to psychologically, understand that you have to have some patience before you can get right back at it. Number three, what's something that the two of us and the listeners can assist you with, and how do we contact you?
Oh gosh, assist me with who? I'll say they sort of go hand in hand with the contact information of what you just asked. Is, as you know, I'm big on relationships and connecting. If you feel like I can be of value to someone that's struggling with X, Y, or Z in the multifamily space or real estate in general, I love helping them. And the thing I've learned the older I get is that, the principle about whatever you put into someone else is going to come back to you. And there's 2 or 3 different ways you could say that. It's never been more true. And we're not always talking about money. Most of the time we're not talking about money. So whatever value you're pouring into someone else is going to come back to you, and it may not be from that same person. I believe it's a universal rule, and so really, if there's anyone you think I could help, you can throw them my way. So mine and Greg and Kim's website is realwealth.solutions, or you can find me on Facebook. You can find me on LinkedIn. I currently don't use really like a business email, but my regular email is my first initial last name 6362@gmail. You can get me that way. So always willing and able to talk shop, whatever that is. And I get phone calls too, like just about people struggling in general with time management, motivation, things like that. So if you need some motivation or a kick in the butt, I'm your guy if you're willing to take that. I had someone approach me at MM4 just thanking me for that, and I was like, oh, I don't even remember, but it was pretty humbling, I'm not a life coach, and I don't claim to be a life coach, but we all struggle from time to time. So
Yeah, no, well, that's valuable. That is great value you can add to other people, and I'm sure you've done many times. And I want to thank you for being on the show. You've been a fantastic guest with great insight, and appreciate you coming on. And good luck with the rest of your ventures through
thanks, Bill.
2022.
Appreciate you. Appreciate Steven, and big respect for what you guys have going on as well. So I appreciate you having me on.
Thank you so much, Darren.